It's 3:30. We're going to continue with roundtables, and this one's about the Omnichannel platform, and that's moderated by Nicolas Rato, VP Mid-Market, PrestaShop. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to ask Thomas and Geoffroy to come and join me on the stage. Please, a round of applause for them. Good afternoon. You could introduce yourselves, Geoffroy Funding. I'm the head of the Magimix brand, commercial director of Evolutive Group. We're here to talk about the omni-channel approach. I'd like to zoom in on the Geoffroy's journey and when he started with Magimix. What were the challenges you were confronted with, and what is Magimix? What is this brand? Well, I'm lucky enough to be an old one of the digital era. I participated in the digital history of LVMH, L'Oréal, and then the head of the customer experience and omni-channel of Magimix, which is a small company in comparison, but it's great to see a French champion like that. So Magimix is the inventor of the multifunction robot. We manufacture our products in France, and the issue of Magimix was that, well, the distribution of Magimix was very much attached to its distributors, with Darty, for example, and we had few direct relations with our customers. And the digitalization of Magimix was about complementing that distribution. And when you started in 2018, what was your mission? Well, the first one was to know our final customers, our users, end users. We knew our distributors. We had very good relationships with them. We were focused on them. But the challenge was to say, how do I, supplement my retail approach? How can I use digital to strengthen my relationships with them? But how can I use it also to have direct relationships with the end users of the products? So with basic things like the recording of products, a number of digital operations for which we use the core of PrestaShop to do for deliveries, to the ecosystem of Magimix, because when you buy a Magimix robot, you don't buy the robot only, but a whole ecosystem with recipes, programs, the smartphone that can, control the robot remotely. So what is at stake is customer relations, digitalization in the broad sense, media relations, up to the ecosystem around products. So that's a product that is very dense. What was the state of maturity of Magimix with regard to digital? Well, the maturity was not very high, but there was a lot of ambition. And the mains given to me were quite nice, and I had a free roadmap with a lot of agility in IT developments. That was quite pleasant. So it was an opportunity to develop the most agile digital system possible. So basically, they gave you keys, and they told you, we want to be in digital. It's up to you to tell us how. Well, there are two things at stake. The brand, how can it be digitalized, and how can it digitalize its relations, and how can digital amplify the relationships around products? When you started in your job, you discovered the company. What were the first workshops that you launched? Well, I started in June, and the ambition was to be ready by Black Friday in November. So we had to develop a whole system in a few months. From a B2B logistics to kind of logistics to brand site. So there were two workshops, a presentation of the brands with marketing and how it was about how to transform, the warehouse not only for B2B commerce, but also B2C commerce with an ERP. How can I develop customer relation department, so with the setting up of desks. And as we are omnichannel, the idea was not to go in e-commerce to compete with our competitors. We were there to bring about services, and an important element of our relations with our distributors is that we animate the sale of our products with gifts, and it was a way to have direct relationship with the end customer. So to record customers' products on our platform, choose the gifts that they could acquire, that they could get, and use the back office of PrestaShop, of my e-commerce back office, to deliver the gift within 24 to 72 hours when people bought one of our products. So it was a broad mission, but with different BUs with whom you had to work. So how did you manage in a few months to become somebody who, who could do deliveries yourselves? Um, well, we spent days in warehouses to design a dedicated place for e-commerce, to reorganize them so that most products be close to the pickup point for e-commerce. We designed e-commerce cardboard boxes, and they didn't exist before. Uh, we, whilst respecting the environment, there are some cardboard boxes that we removed. We had a complete approach with our logistic partner, and we worked with different carriers because we've got products that weigh 30 kilos, others that are much lighter. And you added to product. What was it, part of the DNA of Magimix to have additional things? Well, it was the same promise as the distributor. The promise of Magimix is to say my only mission is to allow any prospect to buy on any channel. I'm not, I'm not going to replace the shop, boulanger or darty. But the idea is to satisfy the customer in terms of products and in terms of services. And the digitalization, which makes it possible to recover those gifts, helped us in our relationships with our distributors, because nobody, went to stores to ask where their gift was anymore. Because before the process would take maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and people went back to the outlet saying, I haven't got my gift yet. And that was a loss of time for them. So when we explained to our distributors, this system, they said, yeah, you're going to amplify customer satisfaction. You are going to over-communicate about where the product is at. And so all of the irritating factors that happened before are going to disappear, and you're not going to be in competition with us, because when you recover your product from a retail shop, you're not exposed to the same thing. So it seems to be simple, but what were the main obstacles that you had to overcome? A problem of education internally about the need to digitalize, Was it your sales circuit that didn't like the fact that you would have an e-commerce shop? What was the main challenge? Well, digitalization. The first thing that I started at Magimix, when I talked about customers, people, we did not understand one another in the company because they talked about our distributors, whereas I talked about the end users. So it took about a week so that we understood what we were talking about. It was truly about keeping our passion and our strong relationships with our distributors, but also to have a customer vision. That was the first challenge that's inherent to all digital workshops. The second was to say that we're not there to compete with them. We post the same prices as distributors, but we, created such a strong relationship with them that on 3rd of March 2020, I went from 20 to hundreds of shops, physical shops, to 3 online. We had to basically adapt, and we asked demonstrators who used to work in shops to come online, and we had an operation where we thought we've got a pool of influencers with us. We are all, in the kitchen all the time, so we asked them to create contents with us, and they got very much involved in this operation. And we thought we're going to facilitate the access to recipes thanks to our influencers, and we're going to facilitate access to our products. So thanks to our influencers, we suggested discounts, and we made a donation to the hospitals of Paris. We created that operation, so we made it easier for people to have access to recipes, to products, and at lower prices. And after 2 or 3 weeks, we went to talk to the distributors and said, do you want to participate? And Darty joined us. So they were in our e-shop, and Darty also participated in this food Magimix operation, etc., etc. So even through our e-shop, we created an omnichannel operation. So you got your distribution channels on board. Yes, they've always been our partners. Thomas, I'd like to zoom in on with you on the story, because we talked about an operation over several months. From the agency point of view, when you're confronted with this kind of very ambitious project with a very short period of time, how did you approach the subject? Well, the reality is that the whole story that Geoffroy is telling, they are our preferred clients at Evolutive. Maybe you don't know all Evolutive. We started being merchants 16 years ago, and we were e-commerce dealers. And that's the life of Evolutive. Gradually, the market reversed, brands internalized, insourced e-commerce, and we insourced services. And today, to support from end to end such a strong digitalization with, when we talk about digitalization, we talk about very long terms, whereas companies that are not yet digitalized, that haven't started the process, have got to become digitalized in a very short period of time. So when you gain time by understanding what the issues are, and our job is to really understand the issues and needs at the right phase to be there at the right time in the right place, because the issues in 2018 were not the same in 2020. And so to have the right team in place from a technical point of view, but also to support the project, directors like Jean-François need to have their internal team, but also to have their agency with them. And we are only one team to launch these projects, and we get involved as if it was our own company to achieve that digitalization project. So you're talking about a team. What were the resources mobilized? Well, it varies according to the period, but um, on our side, there's going to be 6 to 7 people in the different poles of activity. You have developers, technical architecture, that's for technical matters, but also there's somebody in the acquisition department. We're talking about performance or natural referencing, project management, the steering, as we call it, at Evolutive. It's about removing friction points to allow for communication between our two structures to be as smooth as possible. And on the Magimix side, how did you structure your department? Did you have few contacts with Evolutive? I've got two main teams, one for brands and contents, influence, PR, and who works on contents with the other team, which is the acquisition and digital center, where I have project managers. The idea is not to have huge teams. It's not the business model of Magimix. It's not the agility that I want to have. I want to have partners that are well integrated into my team, instead of having many resources internally. And in terms of recruitment, there were already profiles internally. You had digital connotation, or did you recruit the whole of your team? I was lucky. I had two fantastic experts in a team. Obviously, their scope of work has evolved in the last 2 years, but they are still the same two young women who managed the two centers. So Solène for technical matters and acquisition, her team was multiplied by 4, and Cynthia for brands and contents and social media. So recruitment, is it, how do you deal with it? Would you rather recruit rather junior people, or would you rather invest in more experienced people with omnichannel? Well, we've got 15 open positions if anybody is interested in the room, and we are looking for rather senior profiles, but we're not closing the door to a junior person or junior people. Now to have junior people requires that the more senior ones can support them and accompany them. So it's always a point of balance, but yeah, recruitment in digital is a major issue for, I think, the whole ecosystem. I guess it's the same thing for PrestaShop. We are all looking for our nuggets. And to close this point about recruitment, well, it's changed a lot in since the COVID crisis. That we've made the choice of recruiting without looking at the address, because the two most important points in a recruitment, that's skills, obviously, but it's also a state of mind. Is the state of mind of the applicant, does it match with one of Evolutive? Because it is important that we are all on the same page, that we all have the same desire to do things and to make our merchants grow. This is the most important for us. as for recruitment. I will never have a big internal team. My philosophy is to use the best experts outside who may use my strategic people. Um, and so it's a matter of finding the right agencies, the best partners, and to to recruit. Yes, but what is important is to grow people and to grow people gradually when markets are mature enough to send my HQ teams develop e-commerce markets. As for synergies, I'll get back to that in physical and digital worlds. I imagine that there's more and more integration. You talked about the COVID being a true accelerator. What are your next projects to go even further? I think there aren't any more barriers between physical and digital. I try to explain to my teams that there's no retail and e-commerce. We've got to think in terms of commerce. So that's why we've got live shopping projects. We've got demonstrations in shops with our distributors. We're going to create, as from the 9th of November, a whole series of live shopping events with partners like Unify. And we integrate our distributors into that. And with that vision of connected commerce, it's not because you don't have demonstrators in the shop that you can't have demonstration of the brand, digital demonstration that may be operated by internal demonstrators. So it's again omni-channel. We talked about Australia before. Magimix is a French player, but also international. How did you apprehend digital experience in another country? Are there different codes, or are they the same fundamentals? Is it the same experience for everybody? And can you duplicate what you've created for France in Australia? Well, there are two things that differentiate Australia from France. That's the business model and the integration with distributors and the brand. The brand experience is going to be the same in all countries, with a lot of fluidity between retail and e-commerce, and it will be the case also in Australia, even though it might be a bit complicated. But what is going to change is the power of distribution. It does not that strong network of distributors does not necessarily exist elsewhere. So we'll have to work properly with local players and integrate maybe pure players and to feed well the different distribution channels that will be anyway more heterogeneous than in France. Thomas, what do you think is different abroad? Well, the technical base is the same, and it's also what is at stake with a lot of customers like Magimix, is to have a technical base that can be. It's not a matter of copy and paste, but the idea is to have an architecture that is the most sound and sustainable possible to be deployable and scalable elsewhere. Scalable is a way to grow in France or elsewhere. So you have got to design the architecture of a site, even if there's not a project of internationalization, it ends up always with becoming more international. So it's about ensuring that there aren't technical frictions, because that's the worst for merchants. And Alexandre was saying that this morning in his introduction. So yeah, the internet user has got to have a seamless experience, but we as agency, we also want merchants to also have a seamless experience. That'd be the smoothest possible for them, with the whole ecosystem of partners, PR, etc. whether you are international or not. It's important for us to have a consistent platform. Use the was it stake for my teams? It's not to behave like technical experts. The, the people in my digital center, the head of the technical center has got to become a business leader. And it means I can develop experiences in England that I don't necessarily have in France or in the Netherlands or Australia. So that all countries don't try the same thing at the same time. And then I can use my experiences in other countries elsewhere. And if something works in the what is frustrating is when something works in the UK that can't be replicated in France or in another country. Thing is, we focus on the development of business, and digital is, a vector of value for the company. So if there's frustration, it's damageable. Did you have a test in the UK that worked in the UK and not in France? Well, it's more the opposite. The UK market is more focused on pure players. So we adapt to our British friends, and they like to review what we do. To conclude on the 3 do's and don'ts, I haven't prepared this question, but it's easy. Do not consider your historical distribution circuits as obsolete. Gain in maturity with them and be the softest possible with them. We're there to serve our, and they're all there to serve the brand. And the more I talk to distributors, the more I realize that we can invent things together. Thomas, we'd say it's sad that COVID finally crushed borders. As an agency, we've been convinced for more than 10 years that e-commerce and physical trade should get together. Because the omnichannel is that, I've got my own shops, I've got physical shops, I've got franchisees. And a unified experience will only, develop all of the 3 levers. And the fact that people finally have become aware of that, I think it's great. As we can see in bit with players in distribution, also in franchise, click and collect also generates impulse purchases in shops, and I see that with a lot of brands with which we work, they had departments that didn't talk to one another, marketing didn't speak to digital or to IT or purchasing. Now everybody speaks to one another. They're all in the same office, and they all acknowledge the same thing. Sales are increasing, improving. One last word. Well, thank you for your invitation. It was a great pleasure. Thank you to those who watch us remotely. I hope to see you soon.